Hi, everybody, and welcome. Thanks for coming to Wouldn't It Be Fun? I'm Amy Snell, and you can find me here on Zoom and YouTube Live the first Friday of every month at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter as at Devious Knitter.
Hi, everybody, and welcome.
Or on.
Thanks.
It's okay. It's everyone just knit a row. That's what happens.
Yeah, just knit a row. That's what happens. I
It's
forget
time
to turn
knit
off.
already.
There we go. I forget to turn off the audio from YouTube Live about half the time. So there we go. Anyway, the exciting news is I'm joined this month by my guest, knitwear designer and instructor, Josh Bennett. Welcome, Josh.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. So, Josh, you have had such an interesting career in the knitting industry. And I would love to hear a little bit more about some of the things that you've done. I know at one time you had a job writing custom patterns for customers at a yarn shop. Tell us about that.
Well, you make it sound much bigger than how it started. But yes, how it ended was I would write custom knitting patterns. But the first yarn shop that I worked at in the city, well, I guess ever, was at the Yarn Company. And it was on the upper west side of Manhattan. And their, I don't want to say gimmick, but their kind of draw was that if you would buy all your yarn there, you would knit your gauge swatch, because that's very important. And then measure the gauge swatch and write you your sweater pattern with about 5-10 minutes. That's how I learned how to write patterns. So when I was first hired there, I was like their stock boy, I guess. So I wasn't allowed to say even hi to any of the customers. It was just like, oh, let me go in the back, make sure all the yarn's from the dye lot. Please don't pull from the displays, and I re-merchandised. I really loved that because one, you just get to work with all the yarn and everything. But two, I was so happy they didn't have me talk to anybody because listening and seeing how to solve the knitterly problems was really important and very educational. But through time, I learned how to write hat patterns, and then it was like baby sweaters. Thank God for babies. The little squares and arms is perfect. And then slowly into like adult sweaters. So they wrote me my first pattern, and then I knit about 8,000 of that one sweater. And from there, then they would like test me on, I would measure a customer and do it. Because, if you've ever met a knitter or a woman from the Upper East Side or Upper West Side, you don't want to make a mistake in writing their pattern, because they will come back and let you know until maybe I cried in the bathroom for about maybe only 5 minutes that you've made a mistake. So it was very educational. That is how I wrote patterns, and that learned how to write patterns, and still today is how I write patterns, because the math is the same.
Yeah, that sounds like it's a real sort of a really good education that you got starting not to just to knit the smaller things, but you must have really learned how to knit them well if you were writing patterns for them right away.
Pattern writing it's pattern writing to me is it's like kind of like a catch-22. It's like very easy, but then there's so much involved, especially with like the stitch and the fiber, that the math isn't always what you want it to be, because you have to stretch and pull. And but I was knitting a lot before I worked there. And the thing was, like, I thought I knew a lot. And then you realize very quickly that I didn't know much at all. And I still feel like that's very important for me to have as a designer, to feel like I don't know much. Because I'm always wanting to learn more, because I think that everybody else knows more than I do. So I always have to keep up.
So are you someone who enjoys learning by doing?
I do. So knitting is really important, that I have to be able to do it, not perfectly, but I always go through it until I get it. So I will always keep on making mistakes and keep my mistakes in my swatch. That's where my mistakes live. Even though I've never made a mistake, I've only learned lessons. I've learned a lot of lessons, but yeah. So in my swatch that I do, that's where I'll just keep on going, and I won't worry about if it's perfect or if it's working correctly at that time. It's all about kind of doing it until I think, oh, all right, now that step is right. Now that step is right, and it builds on itself. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You've also designed knitwear for some really big names in the fashion industry. What led you there?
I don't know. No. So in 2010, after I worked at a couple yarn shops, I got into Vogue Knitting. I started designing for them, and I thought, well, you know what? I want to be doing my own sweaters, my own patterns, and why not go back to school to FIT to study menswear so I can learn how to construct the clothes to go in my styling, or like, construct the clothes for my styling for my shoots, because it'd be easier just to buy it, but why buy it? Like, I wanted to make it and go to school for that. So at school I got hooked up with my favorite menswear designer, Michael Bastian. It was like a fluke that happened, and just about 2 months in the office, he asked me if I would do a collaboration with him, all hand knit collaboration. So as I was in fashion school, I was showing at Fashion Week, and then Saks Fifth Avenue and Bergdorf bought our first collaboration together. So then I was making about 50 sweaters and graduating school, which was just awesome to be like, just everything was like happening at one moment. So that's how I
Wow.
got hooked up with Michael, and then it kind of just snowballed from there.
That sounds really exciting. To me, I watch this sort of stuff, and I'm watching Project Runway, and I'm watching it on TV, and that sounds like a really exciting life to live, to be putting collections together for Fashion Week and things like that. What was it actually like in the day to day being part of that industry?
Well, Project Runway is a stress-inducing show that I absolutely love. I love it, but I couldn't watch it during fashion school, and I can't watch it during fashion week or when I have a deadline, because like they're all stressed out, and I know that like I could never go on that show. It's so difficult to be able to construct what they do like within 4 hours. I don't understand how that happens. So like I have a sewing machine right here, and it's a great statement piece from my workroom. It makes me seem like I know a lot more than I actually do. Um, but it's really different. So working with Michael Bastian and doing like the major menswear fashion week shows is, you have all the celebrities, you have all like the top male models, and the great casting agents, like all these people who are really kind of historic in that industry. And me not being that much of a fashion kid, I was like, yeah, I know who they are, but I wasn't like wowed by it. So you really got to kind of work with them, and it wasn't about like who they were. It was really about the work itself. And I have been so blessed in that industry that I worked with the nicest people. I've always heard like the horror stories of the fashion world, and I I don't know what that's like, because Michael Bastian was amazing when I had my collection at Bergdorf's. The menswear fashion director was amazing. So I love that I've been able to work with such great people who have been influential in my design aesthetic. Um, like days can get stressful, like, oh, you have to like put together outfits and or style clothes and make sure the models walk the right way. But like when you only have like 30 minutes to make all of that happen, then it could be a little stressful. But I mean, good stress. I guess that's like luxury problem stress.
And so, how is it different designing for? I assume that your collections for Bergdorf's and everything they're machine knit, right? Those sweaters, or
Well,
or
I mean,
someone hand knitting them?
me, if I'm the machine,
So,
um,
but they must carry more than you're able to knit by hand when they
so
start, right?
everything, starting with Michael, it really became clear to us that I don't want to mass produce, because like once you get into like the machine knitting, then that brings like tens of thousands more people like kind of in your, I don't, not competition, but they're like kind of doing this, you're doing the same thing they are. hand knitting is a little bit, hand knitting with the two needles is me a little bit more special because there's someone making it and it was me. So like the person, they know who's making it. So everything is dated, numbered, and signed.
Wow.
So there might only be a size run. We might do only 3 styles and, you know, a, small, medium, large, extra large, double X, and then special orders for anything larger or smaller. With Marvel, with a little bit bigger of a collection, there's about 3 to every size. And then Black Panther, that was with Thor. Black Panther, I did it by order. So whenever someone ordered it, I would then know. And only 5 of each of those styles would be made. And I thought
Wow.
that was kind of smarter.
I had no idea that you were hand making those to that extent. That is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's for Thor. I did have some help with a hub in India, and they made some of the pieces, and then I would do all the finishing myself. I found out that I don't really like that. I I could let that happen again because I'm giving up more control. But for me, it's like little things that are very, very important that maybe the buyer aren't even aware of. That just makes me feel comfortable, and that if they're not done a certain way or look a certain way, that I feel like maybe I'm being I don't know, like the product isn't up to, the price point or the company that it's for. So there's little things like attention to detail that I'm very particular about.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, if you're putting your name on it, it makes sense that you would really get particular about what you want to put out there. That I'm sure that you want to put a really high quality product out there.
And going through the buyers, going through Market Week for Fashion Week, or for just the, fashion world, is actually very stressful because the buyers come in from all the major department stores, or Bergdorf, Saks, Barney's, and they will literally pick apart the entire garment, no matter if it's a sweater or whatever, and like look at everything. And if there's like a stitch, like you knit into a stitch below and there's a little gap, they will point it out and be like, is this going to be in the final
Yeah.
production run? And you have to like be able to, kind of not argue, but debate why you made choices. You have to be open, because if they're going to be buying them, you have to be open to maybe some changes that they know that their customer would like. Um, yeah, so that really it really fast forwarded my journey in the attention to detail luxury market, kind of what I look at.
So there was a great question that came through in the chat. Someone wanted to know, how long does it take you to make like an average size men's sweater?
Thank you for saying, giving me the parameters. So everyone's always like, how long does it take to make you a sweater? I'm like, well, a baby sweater, maybe like 2 hours. So like, it really depends. And I'm going to start from the very beginning, from kind of concept until the first sample and pattern is written. That can take anywhere from like 2 weeks to about a month, depending on when the yarn, if I can find the right yarn, the stitches all work. And then it's like getting through that first sample and checking the math, blah, blah, blah. That's usually the longest. After that, hopefully that sweater will take me no more than about 5 to 6 days max to make from start to finish. And that would be for about a men's medium, but maybe like 42, 44 around, maybe 6 days for that. But yeah, my size, like I'm a little bit smaller. So my size hopefully will take me no more than like 4 or 5 days.
Do you make yourself one of everything you design? Or
Um,
some of them?
yes, yes. And the Marvel collection was actually the first time that I got to have a piece of my collections. Like Bergdorf's, by the time I've done the sample to show them, and they approve it, the collection's pretty much bought already. So because they'll sell it to their clients first. And Marvel is kind of the same way. Now it just gets made and it's gone. So I used to sell those sample pieces part of that run, because I don't have time. Sometimes I don't have the time to make one of each of those sweaters again. And plus I want them. And so Marvel was the first. And it was really great because I did a collaboration I guess November of last year with Madeline Tosh, and I knit my colorway and they knit a different colorway, but I get to keep mine because I'm like, it has to be in my contract that I keep the samples now. After they like do the little like, yarn shop round, I was like, they need to come back to me because sometimes you just want the kids back. And like, I wanted to wear them so much. I love those sweaters. I loved all the Thor sweaters too. So I'm happy. So yeah, so I finally have complete sets of my work, some of it.
That's something that people who aren't in the fiber industry might not know, that, when if you're designing, you might not get it back, or you might not get it back for a long time.
Very long, or you get it back and you're like, oh, you could have just kept it. After it makes like the round, like the tour, I say, of like all the yarn shops and everyone's touching it and rubbing it on their face, which please don't rub yarn on your face. It's very gross. Like, that's one thing working at a yarn shop is like, there's like this white ball of cashmere and it's a little, you can tell someone touched it, and then you turn it around, it's like makeup on the one side of it. It's like, man, it's okay. You just buy it at a discount. So I have a lot of white cashmere with makeup on it. But I'm sorry, I just totally blanked on your question.
Oh, we're just talking about how, designers don't always have all of their patterns. And
yes, so
yeah.
I make sure that that's in my contract or my agreement, that I get back the sample after it's done, or an adequate amount of time. And if anyone's going to be a designer out there, always come back with sooner than what the company proposes. It would always be like 3 years. I'm like, no, 6 weeks. Like, like you got to figure out what you want to do with it in 6 weeks, because then I want them to promote myself. And I, want to be able to wear it and do that. So it's important to me for that to get it back as well.
I love that. Thank you for that advice. It really, you've been doing this so much longer than I have, and there's a shawl out there I really want back. I want to wear it. I want to show it off, and I don't get it back just yet.
Oh yeah, that's the worst part. It's like actually the waiting of it, like knowing you really like it got cool here after. I forgot when I was gonna get the sweaters, but like it was hot when I sent them away, and then it got cold. And I was like, no, I want my sweaters. And then in January, I think I got them, or December, but I wore them every single day after that. Like it was crazy. Yeah.
I think there's probably lots of stuff that the average knitter has no idea how it works on the back end for people in the industry. What do you think would surprise people to know about your life as a designer and as someone who works in this industry?
Most of the time this is going to sound kind of, I don't really submit, I don't do submissions, and I don't usually do one-offs. So a lot of submissions are difficult because I like to create an entire story. So, but I was surprised on how much they'll just change your design because, it has to fit an editorial, or it has to fit what their collection is. And I love that. I think that collaboration and being open to change is actually how you become better at everything, because your point of view, sure, your experience is limited though, even though it's yours, someone else's experience it could be like a mic drop moment. That's why, like, for me, I never say no right away. Like when someone has an idea, because there's never a bad idea in a brainstorming session. It's just, I have to think about it. Like, usually we're all very quick to be like, oh, no, I don't see how that works, or I don't want to do it that way. And it's like, well, make your case to me, like, let's collaborate, because that's how I'm going to get better and you're going to get better, and let's do something awesome together. So I think that the amount of collaboration that happens, or that should happen, would surprise people, I guess.
That's really cool.
I like to collaborate. I seem like a lot of people don't. They're very like guarded, and I think too, like, if you made a garment, which I don't think any sweater we do is ever going to be perfect, because our hands are different. We're all different. So every sweater that we do is going to be different from the person who's literally knitting the same thing right beside us. It's just going to be different. But I've just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Well, you were
I'm very
talking
nervous.
about,
This is the first interview I've
oh,
done like in like a month and some. I'm like very nervous right now.
well, you were
I
talking
told you
about,
before we came on, I was like, I have to talk to you because you're the first person that I've talked to today, and I have to get out all my word vomit.
so you were talking about collaboration. And I
Right.
don't know, have you finished that thought or?
Well, it's important. I just feel like we should let ourselves be open to, even if you don't like the other person's opinion or the idea, it's just to stop and listen and just see like if you can even get inspired by something like that. Like I feel that should be a bigger part of our industry and everybody's industry, is like just let go. Very Project Runway teams, right? Like let go and like be able to work together and to go down that route of not being so defensive about like your design and seeing how two things can really be married, or three things, or it's, I'm in a collaboration right now that I'm absolutely loving. So I'm very much into that like collaborative love right now.
That's awesome. You mentioned your Marvel collection a couple of times, and I'm curious, how did that come about?
uh, it's such like I will also say this about what would be surprising on the back end: how much depends on what you do yourself and how you're open and being able to see opportunities where others might not. That I think has been my biggest benefit, is that I love talking to people. I love getting to know people. I have many interests and I love to hear a lot about things that I have known nothing about. And I was in LA, kind of going through the show that was called Movers and Makers. It was going to follow a couple people around who like made things for a living. And I was there kind of going through an interview process and casting, and I was staying with my friend, and he was like, hey, my best friend's going to be having a pool party in the hills. Very LA. I'm very New York and very pale. I didn't even bring like swimming trunks. I was like in cutoff jeans and like a sweater. No, I had short sleeves on, but definitely like cut off jean shorts, not very pool LA ready. But we get there, and the his friends were awesome. It was like my childhood all in a pool. Like one guy was like this worked at Jordache doing like the president of Jordache. The other guy was in charge of My Little Ponies at Hasbro. And then there was the other guy who owned the house. He was like Power Rangers, like there's like Fabian or whatever. Then there was him, and he was like big. And then his husband, Brian, worked at Marvel and was like the head of like consumer products. But we were chatting about what I did, and he said superheroes, Marvel. And I had just gone through a interview process with Banana Republic to be a sweater design manager. I had left Tommy to do Bergdorf's, and then Bergdorf's, that first season had ended, and I don't know if we're going to be doing it again. So Banana Republic came around, and I did a superhero collection for them. And it was, since they're known for like their workwear, but they didn't want to be known for that and wanted to skew younger, I did superhero alter egos and their jobs. So Peter Parker was a photographer, and Bruce Wayne is a playboy, and the reporter, Clark Kent. So each delivery was kind of based off of their alter ego jobs. And as I'm telling my friend Brian this from Marvel, he was like, would you ever want to do something like that for us? He's like, we'll sell it on our website, you sell it on yours, all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, that would be nice. And I never ever think that things are going to happen, because people just talk. And then about 3 weeks later, I got an email from another guy who works at that department, like asking me if I wanted to do this collaboration, and that's how it started.
It's really cool.
So just a pool party. So go to pool parties in the hills in LA and you'll get jobs. It's as simple as that. Yeah, it's just like one of those kind of weird douchey stories that it's like, I was just like at a pool party, and we're actually like best friends today from that, because we also have a love for musical theater. So we've bonded, and he's pretty much my best friend now.
Well, I think first of all, I don't think that's a douchey story, but I think what it really speaks to is the sort of the power of saying yes. You seem like you've touched on that a couple of different times about things that came to you in your career, and and you said yes to them.
Yeah, I mean, it's your job, it's a career, you don't want to say no. So like, it's like Joan, I think Joan Rivers said something like, you never turn down a job, or I know Jerry Orbach said you never leave a hit show. It's just when people come to you with opportunities, you take it, because where you start is never where you end up, right? So like that first idea for a design is never what it ends up on the final page. Like, and that's something you have to like let go and just say yes to, is like, how's this going to change, how do I make it work? And that's my job, is I have to make this work. And I feel like if you say no a lot of the times, then you're just cutting that opportunity might not happen again. And it's not a fear of missing out, it's just, well, it's a fear of not making rent, like you want to get the job. And no matter what you do, like you're going to learn something from it, even like what you hate or like what you don't want to do, you'll learn that and it will just help you in the future.
That's awesome. Thanks. So I first got to know you because of Vogue Knitting Live, and you started out doing the welcome parties there with London K, and those were super fun. And you do them every month, and then you started doing these Swatch What Happens Live, these interviews with the teachers, and that was super. I was so excited that I got to be on that, and you interviewed me, and you're really really good at that, by the way. Um, so, like, how did all of that come about?
um, well, it started with me teaching Alan Cumming how to knit, and that was years ago. When I moved to the city over 20 years ago, I had known Alan Cumming. He's an actor and a Broadway guy, and he had opened up a club a few years ago called Club Cumming down in the East Village, and had contacted me to do a weekly live show in the East Village at his club every Tuesday, 6 to 8, called a Knit at Night. It was awesome. And while there, we would do the Vogue Knitting kickoff party. So, we would do it like the Thursday when all the teachers were getting in town, and Trisha Malcolm, who was the editor-in-chief at the time, would come, and like the staff, and we'd have like great guests. Like London K actually was one of the guests at the very last one that we had that was there. And then that got, we stopped it and went virtual and asked London to be a crochet correspondent, because she's in LA and we were in New York, and it worked virtually. And then when Vogue Knitting started doing the virtual knitting lives every month, they asked us to do, the first welcome show. And then it just became like every month. And I was like, it's really great to welcome all the attendees and kind of get them through what they need to do with a little bit of entertainment, a little education. It's kind of like, it's a fun show. And we do a make and model, which is my favorite part, which is like my version of show and tell, because you get to make it and model. So what's your make and model? And that became really popular at Knit at Night, and then really popular at the virtual knitting live. People love to show it off, even if it's through Zoom. And we got to see, much more international flavor because of the Zoom. But I then wanted to connect more with the teachers, because I feel like I know that I felt like I missed them, because one of the only times we all get to see each other are at like these virtual Vogue Knitting Lives or the TNNA. So I was like, you know what? There's so many teachers I don't know now. I went to the woman who does the events, Gabby, and I was like, can we do like a teacher kamikaze? Like people just throw in questions, or like I just have tons of questions I pick out of a hat. It's just like fast. And it kind of just evolved into like a Swatch What Happens interview. When you sign up, like, as you will know, Amy, like we don't ask you like, hey, do you want to be on this date? It's literally, we throw the sheet up, and whoever gets there and like fills it out first is where their spot is, and then who they get paired up with is what I love, because sometimes it's so different that I can't find a connection. So I just like let them talk, and like you find out all these great, interesting things about these designers that you never knew before. And that's to me what it's really about, is not how'd you learn how to knit, all that stuff. It's like, why do you love designing what you do? And kind of more designerly questions. And I'm going to stop now since you were drinking. I thought I would end at that point. So, yeah.
Perfect timing. I know. Oh gosh, is it hot where you are?
Oh my, it's so hot. Like I have my fan on me. Like it's been very humid. So
Yeah, I was glad I remembered to get a glass of water before I sat down to do this, because then you turn on all the lights and it's like,
Yes. It's like I haven't spoken today and my mouth is dry. So it's like two great things for everybody who's like viewing,
So you mentioned teaching and the teachers and things like that. And you've been teaching I know you've been teaching at Vogue Knitting Live, and you've been doing some other online teaching as well, right? Are you doing some things through your own website?
Yes. I found last year at the beginning of kind of the stay-at-home orders, it was just like hit the ground running. It's like I was already busy, and then it was like 3,000%, which I'm happy that I got to teach so many people how to knit, and being kind of having to switch virtually very quickly. I thought, well, why not open it up and teach people how to knit, or just do some consultations via Zoom off of my website. And it's been really great. I have like my little core people who I see every single week. They kind of follow, like they have the same project, and we do a couple hours, and I sit and help teach them how to write patterns and stuff. So it's really been fantastic. It's and interesting to see what people want to learn and what they will schedule time just to ask about, which it's I've had some interesting lessons. Yeah.
Does that help you, when you're kind of planning what additional things you're going to teach? Does it help you as a teacher when you get that sort of feedback about what people want to learn?
Yeah, and it's really helped, because I'm doing a book as well. I'm writing a book now, and that's really helped to get it from a point of view of an absolute beginner or someone who's just started, like what they find important, or what they think is important at that time. And that's been enlightening, because my journey was maybe a little, everybody's journey is different, and what we kind of are attracted to is different. So to see kind of the boiled down, I have questions about these needles or this yarn, and kind of what comes second nature to us now. It's good to kind of get back to the basic, curiosity.
Yeah, you talked about sort of what things are like when you're just starting out, and how people are getting into knitting. And I know that you first got into knitting when your grandmother taught you when you were young, but then you kind of, you say that you stopped because boys don't knit.
Yeah, whenever I grew up, boys don't knit, but then I got into musical theater because apparently we all sing and dance. So, it was like knitting or musical theater, but yeah, so I stopped for many, many years, and I thought about it a lot. Like I loved sweaters. I worked in retail. I always bought sweaters, and it was like my thing. I think my very first sweater memory was just it's like my mom and I shopping, and like we found this brown sweater that I always wore. It was like, I don't know, acrylic. I can still see it and feel it, and it was comfortable at that time. I can't imagine I probably sweat to death in it now. But just that sweater kind of influenced me and loving that part of the knitting, making. That's my favorite thing to make, is a sweater. So that all kind of contributed to where I am now with my knitting. I've been doing a lot of thinking back, like trying to go back and see what was like the really important piece or garment in my life that I always think back to. And I've been taking a lot of notes, and I think it's just important to kind of see where my inspiration or aesthetic kind of is, was born from.
So do you think, looking back from when you were experiencing, you were growing up and you weren't, you didn't think that it was okay for boys to knit, or maybe you were told that it wasn't okay for boys to knit. Do you think that's still true? Do you think that's still happening? Are things Are gender roles getting a little easier to navigate or
I
not?
think so. And I think so. And it doesn't even really kind of dawn on me much anymore, like about boys and girls knitting. It's just it's what I do. It's, like boys and girls bake. I loved working at the yarn shops, and women would come in and be like, you work here? I was like, yes, but you're a boy. It's like, yes, we can do lots of things these days. Someone else told me I should have answered, yeah, but I'm here for the chicks, is what is what someone told me. Like, that should have been my line, when they said, but you're a boy. um I mean, to me, I was told to put it away, because I remember my sister's friends were coming over, and it was actually crocheting what I was doing. And my mom or someone was like, you should put that away, because, people are coming over. I never understood, like, in that moment of like why. I thought, oh, we just have to clean up. But then it dawned on me, like, oh, it's because maybe they were a little bit more embarrassed than I would have been. I think about that a lot now. But there's so many more guys, just people who are knitting, and with the internet and Instagram and Ravelry, it's just, you can find your group. And I don't even, it used to be like, oh, there's another guy knitter. Like, oh, great. Hopefully they're not bald and bearded as well, because, I always get like Franklin Habit and like Whittaker, Jared Flood. It's like all these J's and names and, beards and bald heads that we all kind of like blend together. But now it's just like, I love just seeing people's designs, and it's never like a gender thing to me. And hopefully one day we'll be able just to like wake up, and if we want to knit, like, not even thinking that it's something to be ashamed of or embarrassed about. Yeah, I still don't knit in public though, so that's because I can't get anything done. I love talking too much to like other knitters, and there's always a knitter somewhere, or someone who knew how to knit before, or their grandmother knit, who wants to talk to you. And like, if I'm out and I'm working, it's like, oh, I have something to get done. And then it's like 2 hours later, as I've helped this other person like write a pattern, fit it, like figure out their problem and cast on, it's just like, oh, I had gotten no work done myself. But it's good.
What do you think we can be doing as a knitting community to sort of be more inclusive of people who might want to knit, but who might not fit the mold of, people who look like us, or what knitters look like, or whatever that is?
Stop saying this isn't your grandma's knitting, or like, that to me is, and when like, it was in the New York Times, I think that was like the headline, and it drove me insane. I actually asked them in the beginning when I was being interviewed, is like, please don't say anything like grandma's, like this isn't your grandma's, or it doesn't look like it, because everybody looks different. And there's young men who do knitting machines, who work in factories, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not one gender who's doing this. And through history it's changed. But just if someone's knitting, it's like they're knitting, and that's what I look at. Like, we share that in common, no matter who you are, where you're from, or if you're doing English or continental. We're literally just pulling a loop out of another loop, and there's only two ways to do that. So I also feel like if someone's doing it their own thing, just let them do their own thing. Like, knitters are very much into giving each other their own advice, because we think we know it all. And you're different, I'm different. I might have a suggestion, but if you don't follow what I suggest, it doesn't make you wrong. We just might not get the same piece, the same outcome, and that's okay if we're different. That's the best thing about knitting, though, too, is like, you get to see someone else's little like what is that? I can't say that word.
Idiosyncrasies.
Thank you, idiosyncrasies. And there's 3 words I cannot say, and that's one of them. And I always choose to say it. So idiosyncrasies, and you just get to learn more, because once again, it's just a different point of view of seeing a knitter. Like, I know Callie is here, and I see her in the room, and like, I love that woman. And it's just like, when we got to spend time together, seeing what she's doing and how she's doing it, and the questions, and like we're two completely different types of knitters, and but we're still knitters. Like I still love that we produce the same, loops. I'm very emotional today.
I think you're so right. This is sort of this thing that I always come back to. I feel like for everything I can think of in knitting, there's more than one way to do it. And you will find for each of those ways, people who will go die on that hill telling you that's the only way or the only right way to do it.
And I love that because I was with a lawyer for 15 years. And to me, make your case, because I've probably already went through every other way to do it. And let's talk about how each way is different. I had someone try to argue with me very early on in class that slip knit, is the same as knit 2 through the back loop. And I was like, well, they're similar because they will both, they lean the same direction, but they're not the same at all. I mean, they slant one way, but they're not the same. Yes, they're the same. There was a scientific study, and I was like, oh my, really? I was like, what Nova, on a Sunday afternoon was showing this, she must have been on glue, because I have no idea how that happened. So now I like to go through each one. Like even myself, when I'm designing, if I'm learning something new, I'll go through different techniques and see which one matches the stitch the best, the fabric the best. And it might not be the same in all of them, but just knowing that like slip knit has both of the loops, not twisted on top of each other, where, knit through the back loop, the top one's twisted. So if you don't want that look, it's not the same. But I love kind of that debate, and writing the book has really made me boil knitting down. And really there's only 4 ways to pull a loop through a loop, and knitwise, purlwise, and then back knit, or through the back. That's it. So it's been really kind of awesome to see the mechanics of it, how it works, and then how all different knitters will kind of try to prove their mechanics. So, a lot of the time it's just like history, the first thing that they've done. So, they're very drawn to it, which I understand.
I would love to hear more about this book. What can you share with us about the book?
It'll be called Get On It. And yeah, that's gonna be it. Hachette is publishing. They're the French textbook publishers. They came to me in the beginning of the kind of pandemic stay in order. One of the editors was trying to find a knitting book that he wanted to learn how to knit, and he just couldn't really find one. So yeah, we've been working on it since then, and I'll have a little bit more information shortly. But yeah, so the contract was signed, so that's always good.
So is this going to be instructional or patterns, or
it's going to be more of like your field guide. So it's everything that I kind of teach in my classes, and a little bit more like pattern. It'll have a section for pattern math, kind of like a make it, so you can have like how to knit, all your decreases, all your increases, the stuff that I really use every day, and then how to write patterns, and then how to design. So it'll have little sections, but it's more of a manual of field guide. So you look at it and be like, oh, that's a, blah, 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 and this is how I want to do that. Or I saw something in the chat about buttonholes. It'll have different, 5 different buttonholes, and then each one will say why it's good, what it should be used for, and how to do it.
That sounds
yeah. Sorry, I was gonna say, this is a book that I wish that I would have had still to this day, from when I started until now, just a constant reference.
I was going to say, it sounds like a fantastic reference. It's going to be really rich and have a tremendous amount of material. And I want to get a copy when it's out. So,
oh, I'll let you know. We'll do this again, because there'll be a whole push about the book as well. But yeah, right now I'm going through my 5 favorite things for each different, 5 favorite cast-ons with their matching bind-offs, increases, decreases, stuff like that. I'm really excited for the pattern writing part, because to me that's always very easy, but people feel it's very mystifying. So yeah.
I think there's not it's hard to find good resource material for pattern writing. There are different things that address different pieces of it, but I feel like that's sort of an area where there's there's room for more resources and more guidance.
I mean, I have a lot of pattern writing books, and I just tell you the truth, I've looked through some of them, but it's all it's a lot. And it's a lot like going through fashion school where you have to work with wovens and we didn't work with knits to see how much stuff is still put into knitting that especially hand knitters put in from the woven world that we don't need, like how you measure and like little things like that. That aren't the same, and they shouldn't be the same, but knits are easier in some aspects and harder in others because of the stretch, and we're human, so it's going to be different.
Well, you must have a lot of expertise on this that maybe folks who have only come through the hand knit world don't have because of your experience in the fashion industry. And I assume that you have a pretty good background in sewing and how patterns with no with how patterns with woven materials work and how they differ from knits.
Yes, so I mean, at FIT when I studied menswear, we didn't study knitwear at all. That was a separate major afterwards. So it was all wovens, pants, shirts, coats, outerwear, suits. So knitting, I got to be a little bit in the cool. We actually had a lot of knitters in my class. We had a knitting club, and a lot of us had hand knitted pieces in our final projects. But it was great not to have knitting because it made me have to separate the two and not just rely that I could do the one thing. And it's so different, but it's really helps me with my fit. And working at Tommy, I was their men's sweater designer at Tommy Hilfiger right before I did the Bergdorf, my first Bergdorf collection. And that taught me a lot because those are all machine made. So just but a machine made sweater, I use that as my fit model for what my hand knits are going to be because it's already been made. It doesn't matter how ugly it is if it fits. I just want the measurements. So that's what I use. And learning, being there and being able to make stuff fast because I didn't have to physically make it myself. And seeing what would sell the most in prior years was really helpful with fits, especially for me. And even construction.
Yeah. So what else is on the table for you? What's coming up for you?
So I'm getting ready for the next virtual knitting live. I'm redoing my yarn wall behind me.
Oh, is it going to be new? Do you redo it every month?
I have, yes. That's normally what I would like to do. So my office was kind of the place where everything was thrown the last few months. I went through a little little life event. So this just like everything was kind of thrown in here, and now I'm finally like clearing it out. We talked about me having to clean my vacuum cleaner today, which I'll spare everybody that story. But yeah, I definitely scrubbed out my vacuum today. But my office is coming back, so I'm working on that. I have a couple sweaters that I'm doing for myself that I'm finishing up. I'm thinking that the Marvel sweaters might have a little pattern release of their own coming in September. Kind of get ready for because Loki is out now, and I know that I have a Loki sweater, and I've been getting asked about that a lot. So, so I thought I would start with putting this guy in a pattern.
Love the detailing on that. Your cable, I love the sharp edges on the cables.
Yeah, because they're twisted stitches. The majority of my stuff has a twisted stitch in it, just because it kind of separates it from anything else that you would see on the shelf or on the rack by it. And yeah, so I'm going to do that. And yeah, I have some workshops that I'm kind of in the talks with right now. Like I know that you're doing the Web's fall retreat, which and you're actually going to be there in person, which was amazing. I was supposed to do the spring one, and I unfortunately had a life event. I couldn't make it, and even though that was virtual, but it is awesome, Amy. It is so much fun. I mean, one, it's so well run. I mean, it's like are just amazing people. The place where you're going to go teach is just awesome. The food is so good, and the students, it sells out super quick. Like they open it up and it's gone right away. So I think the registration's opening soon, right? Or it has.
Yeah, it is. It's opening. I don't know the date, but it's opening really soon. Yeah, and I'm super excited to go. There's going to be, a great slate of teachers I'm excited to teach with, and as you say, the Webs folks have just been fantastic to deal with and to work with in setting all this up.
Yeah, and you go to the store, like they have buses, so they will bus you from UMass to the store. Like they fill up like 5 buses. Like there's tons of people that want to do this, and I'd never been in the store before.
It'll
And
be my
literally,
first time.
oh my gosh, well, bring water and walking shoes because it is humongous. And they'll open up the back warehouse maybe, and you'll see like all the yarn that's back there. And I believe it's like during their sale or something as well. And it's craziness, like the line, because all the people who are attending just want to buy stuff. I remember I came back with like tons of stuff. Their gift bag is amazing, by the way, so make sure you leave a little extra room in your luggage for that. But yeah, it was one of the best experiences of teaching that I've ever had. I'm a huge fan of that retreat and that family, that group of Webs. I'm really impressed by them all the time.
That's awesome.
But congratulations to you. I
you.
saw your name and I was like, that's amazing. Like, congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm going to switch out to some of the questions that I'm seeing going in the chat because we've had some good questions come by. So I'll throw some of those at you if you're open for it. Someone was asking if they're looking to buy your sweaters, are they all on your website or is there any place else they should go looking for those?
Yep, all my sweaters and my patterns are available on my website, joshbennettnyc.com. And yeah, because they're sold out on Marvel. Yeah, so like I'm the one that just has a few of the sweaters left, but I have patterns on my website as well.
And someone was asking about the yarns you like to use. Do you have certain fibers you like or specific yarns that you like to use? And, do you get them from a certain place? Do you get them, someone asked if you get them around worldwide?
So a lot of so for Thor, I like cashmere, like who doesn't? It's a luxury, staple fiber. So there's always 100% cashmere in my collections or a blend like silk cashmere. I actually love cotton because I get cold, but I also overheat very easily. So cotton in the summer or in the spring, it's very easy to throw on, and just take the dog out. For Thor, I used some Zeylana, which is from New Zealand, because I love that yarn. And two, the director of the third Thor movie, Taika, is from New Zealand. So it was a little nod to him because I love that director. And for Black Panther, I use more of like the cotton, a cotton silk blend, cotton cashmere, things that kept it more like spring, summer. But it's really what the design calls for, because whatever's in your head is going to be perfect because you grade your own paper, you're going to get an A. But once you start putting that fiber on the needles and trying to work out that stitch, sometimes you have to, change your fiber. But I love fiber depending on it, how well it works with the design.
Somebody had a question about, as you said, about buttonholes. They were noticing that you have a number of cardigans on your website, and someone wanted to know if you have a recommendation for a good buttonhole that doesn't stretch.
I like a bind off, and then because to me, buttonholes should go horizontal, I believe, because then they slide and lock instead of vertical. Then they flip out because they can't slide. So I like a good bind off and then a cable cast on to pick them back up and to join it, because a cable cast on is it doesn't stretch. But if you have stretchy buttonholes, you can always do not a mattress stitch. Like a blanket stitch. You can do like a small blanket stitch around it, or even just kind of whip stitch or do little X's with a silk thread or a nylon thread, ply the yarn and do it, or even contrast the yarn. But there's ways that you can get in there and make them a little bit more reinforced if you don't have a good buttonhole. I always kind of reinforce them even if they are stiff because it makes it look a little bit more polished.
Nice. All right. That is awesome. Well, that is all I have for you. If anyone else has any last questions, you can throw them in the chat and I'll shoot them to Josh here. Is there anything else that you want us to know about what you are working on? You're going to be at VKL this month, right?
This month, yep, I'll be doing this welcome party and Watch What Happens live. And then I believe we're taking August off. Mm-hmm. So I will be back teaching then in September. So I took a few months off of teaching to I want to get the book finished and kind of zhuzh up the classes. And I'll be back teaching in August, September, taking August off. But yeah, I'll be doing that and teaching from my house a little bit and working on some designs.
Awesome. And any idea when we might get to see the book? Do you know when it's expected to be published?
We are going to be having a meeting about that next week because we had to push back the deadline, as all books, but hopefully, what's this year? 2021. So 2022. What month is it? It's like maybe a little bit before like Mother's Day. I want to kind of be the spring so people can get it, learn how to knit and be able to make their stuff or be ready for fall, winter.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and talking. I always enjoy talking to you.
I love talking to you too, and all of your designs. Like everybody should check out, I mean, they're following you. Of course, they're already fans. I'm like, check out Amy's stuff because it's fantastic. But yeah, congratulations to you. And thank you so much for having me. Like, you took a class from me and I love that like now we're kind of connected. I found that all my students, like I always want to know what they're doing and that they're submitting and that they're getting their designs put out there and doing this. You're fantastic as an instructor. I loved some of the tips that you had for designing and for just making things that much more polished, and definitely, helped me in my designs and, my journey in the industry. Oh, good. It's not as hard as everybody seems, it's like you do what you want, make sure that like you like the work that you're putting out and people will be attracted to that. The people that you want, they're attracted to what you do, to what you want, to, yourself. So I always say, just be yourself and the like-minded people will come. If you knit it, they will come.
Thank you. That's excellent advice. So thanks everyone who joined us tonight on the podcast. And thank you, Josh, especially. I am here on YouTube Live and via Zoom the first Friday of every month. And we're actually going to have a special episode in 2 weeks. I'm actually going to be welcoming Kel Backus, who is the progenitor of the Fiber World show and also the creative genius behind 100 Raven Yarns. And so they'll be joining me for a special episode July 16th in 2 weeks. And then I'm going to take off in August. I'm going to have a little vacation too. So we're kind of doubling up in July and then take a break in August.